Hey again, friends, welcome back to the channel. It's Walt, more also known as Dan Wilson, getting back to a video I started up on a day or so ago, and I cut the first one short just a little bit because it was raining so hard here in the garage. It was so noisy I could barely even hear myself think. So the rain has pretty much moved out of the area right now, so it's a little bit quieter now, and I thought I'd resume on the compressor repair I got in progress here in the garage. What I'm in the process of doing right now is changing out what's called a pressure switch. And I'll take you guys along, kind of show you the procedure and what all it takes to change one of those out. So here in just a minute, we'll show you the tool layout again, and we'll get to work on this son of a gun and try to get this baby fixed. Well guys, here are some of the tools I got laid out here. As you can see, I got tools all over the place on the old Black & Decker Workmate here. Just takes a wide variety of wrenches and different things to get a job like this done. And so down here we got our what we commonly call crescent wrenches. Again, just a quick review on that. Some open end and ratchet end wrenches. We'll be needing some of these. Also, can't forget the old trusty screwdriver. We've got some electrical parts to take apart here. I got to change the cord out and a couple other things we're needing this for. One thing I was going to show you guys too, another very important procedure, something like this. It's just ordinary wire brush. And what this is for, we're going to clean all of our threaded connections up. Let me set the camera down and I'll just kind of show you guys how I go about that. So anyway guys, I guess it was last night, or I kind of lost track of the time. I went ahead and dismantled the old pressure switch components and parts. Here they are. And this of course is the regulator I was showing you guys in the previous video. Had to take all this apart from the old pressure switch. So there's the gauge, regulator, and all that. And then we have the what we're calling the primary gauge, just to measure our tank pressure. That came off very, very easily. All these parts, it came out quite easily. This again is that little pressure release valve. I showed you guys part of this in the last video. And this again is a safety device, so that if something goes wrong with the pressure switch or something else in the system, and it attempts to overcharge the system with too much air pressure, this will open up and release any excessive air pressure. Just a safety device. Every compressor needs to have one of these on there, and this of course prevents any kind of an explosion. You don't ever want your hoses to blow up on you, or God forbid a tank rupture or explosion or something like that. Got to have one of these in there. And what I was talking about a minute ago, I'll try to get something on the camera, you got a good view there. When this came out of the factory, the compressor I mean, they apparently used some liquid sealant on the threads. You can maybe see some of that on there. Now what we got to do to make sure we get a good seal, we put this all back together again, we got to take a wire brush just like this and just clean these threads up thoroughly. And a wire brush will usually do it just fine. We just want to get all that old sealant off of there. And don't want to bore you guys by just standing there wire brushing for like a half an hour, but just a quickie on that. I'll probably do it a little more thoroughly before I put it all together. And you can use any type of ordinary wire brush, it doesn't really matter. I use these little narrow ones like this, because they're really handy on smaller parts like this. You can really get down in there. This has little top bristles too. If I have an area that I have trouble getting the other side of the brush into, I just wiggle in there like that, and that's where we clean those threads up. So it's very important. I've already done that on the primary gauge. Again, this made it a little more wire brushing. I don't even want to turn this into a wire brushing video, just to bore you guys to tears, but just a little pointer on that. If you get into something like this on your own, be sure and clean those threads up very thoroughly. Get all that old sealant off of there, or if it's old tape or whatever it might be, the thread tape, then we just want to be sure and get all that stuff off there. Have a good clean connection on there. Now I promised you guys in the last video I was going to show you how to use this Teflon thread tape. And again, I have used a variety of products for sealing up these threads. Anytime we're working with air pressure or water pressure, be it whatever, we have got to put something on the threads right here in order to seal them up, or else it will not maintain pressure. It's going to leak. On some plumbing stuff I've worked on, I've got some liquid thread sealant that works very well. For some reason it works great with water pressure, but I have not had a lot of luck with it on air pressure connections. Don't ask me why, I don't know. I've tried the liquid on air compressor parts, and it just doesn't work out for the most part. What you got to do is hold your end down like this, press it down into the threads, just like that. You can see how the tape is conforming to the shape of the threads. So essentially what I'm doing by doing it in this direction is so when I put this part in, it's going to force the tape to pull down tight on the threads rather than unraveling. If you do it the wrong direction, go ahead and break that off. There's plenty of thread on that. If you do it in the wrong direction, then when you go to put this part back in, so if you wrap your tape like this, you got to put your part in, it's just going to cause the tape to unravel. It's not going to pull down good on the threads. So we always go the opposite direction of the rotation of tightening. So again, we're going to be tightening clockwise like this. We want our tape going essentially counterclockwise from this direction anyway, just like that. And again, just about like that right there is what it should look like. Usually just one good wrap of tape is usually enough. Now for some reason I get a leak on that, I can always pull it back off, put another layer of tape on there, or whatever it takes to seal that up. But usually that right there is all it needs. Okay guys, I have the new pressure switch right here in my hand, just right out of the box, and one of our next procedures here is we've got some wires to reconnect. Hopefully you can see this okay. Right here's the old pressure switch I took off already. And you can see we got our cord going to the motor right over here. And this is of course the cord that plugs into the wall outlet. It's kind of hung up there a little bit. There we go. As I mentioned before, it's a good idea to go ahead and have your new part ready to go before you start taking all this stuff loose, because you can easily lose track of this wiring. We essentially have in almost any electrical system we have what we call line side, which is the side the electricity is coming in on, which is in this case from the cord. And then we have what we call load side. Load side just means where electricity is going out from here into the motor, and that's essentially it. Okay guys, you can see I got the cover off the pressure switch already. I've got to have this opened up here so I can get to the wiring, get this all straightened out. So we're going to we'll mount this first permanently here in a minute once we get the wiring worked out and get this all sealed up good. So this is just a setup to get the wires worked out. And as I say, we don't have, for example, we're going to be putting our regulator and gauge back on this side over here. If we do this in a bad sequence, in other words, we put all this on here first, plus our gauge out here and our pressure release valve over here, we're going to have a mess and a half trying to put this thing on here. So we got to keep this in sequence. Then we'll just gradually add our other components onto the unit as we go, so we don't have a bunch of stuff in the way. What we're going to do in this case is we're going to take off one wire at a time. I'm going to start with the load side first. It doesn't really matter. So we're first going to take off our ground wire. That of course is the green wire right here is ground. Okay, there's our ground wire loose. Next right up here, just in case you don't know, not everybody's an electrician. I've been a licensed electrician for almost 30 years now, so just a quick review. If you don't know, the green wire is ground, our white wire right here is neutral, and this black wire right here is what we refer to as our hot conductor. So next we're going to take loose our neutral. Next we'll take loose our hot side. Guys, one thing we always want to do too, with any wire connections, after we tighten, we're going to tug. We're going to pull back on the wire. One thing I always do in hooking up wiring, we're going to go back and check all connections one more time. So next we got to get our line side wires up into the new pressure switch. Hear the rain coming down again. 2 days of rain. And we're going to retract on the wires again on our line side over here. But now you can see we got our load side wires hooked up over here, all good to go. Line side wires, other words, the cord end of it hooks up on the left hand side over here. That's all hooked up, ready to go. Right down along through here is a pressure tube. Comes off a connection over here going into the tank. Comes from there up into the bottom of the pressure switch right down here. And of course this is to supply the air pressure to the bottom side of the pressure switch. And that is what lets the pressure switch know when it's supposed to kick in or kick out. So it looks to me like we're ready to start putting our other components on. We'll go ahead and put our safety pressure release valve in next. Might as well. I'm going to brush those threads down just a little bit more. Again, I'll be using the Teflon tape. One thing I do, guys, take my finger or thumb, just kind of go around and push that Teflon tape down there on those threads real good. This goes in on the left-hand side of the pressure switch, at least on this model. And we'll just thread this in till it bottoms out. Little word of caution on some of this stuff, like you get these little fine threads. Be careful not to over tighten initially. All I was saying was be careful not to over tighten. You can strip those threads out easier than you might think, so be real careful with that. It's usually a good practice just to go ahead and snug it down where it feels pretty firm, and then once we get the air pressure building up on there, I'll take some soapy water, we'll spray around there and check for leaks. If we do find a leak somewhere, we'll take the wrench, just tighten up just a little bit more. That's all there is to it. Okay, next goes on our regulator and gauge assembly on the right hand side of the pressure switch. Hooks up right down in here. I already have my Teflon tape on the end there. I'm going to take this, it just goes in right over here. Hopefully it'll clear everything. I hope so anyway. Came off the old one alright. And try to get those threads started straight. There it goes. Spin this around, it's clearing everything so far. Hoping we'll have a problem with that pressure tube down there. Just going to tighten this by hand as far as I can go with it, and then we'll get a wrench on it. Snug it down the rest of the way. We're just about to our final turn there, I think. That one also, I think, takes a 9/16. It's a little loose on it, but it'll work. This stuff gets a little tricky because we got to have our gauge out front, and sometimes it can be a hassle when you're working with threaded parts like this. Sometimes it never wants to line up correctly, so I think that feels pretty good right there. I better stop with what I got. It's going to level that up. Look at it on the side here, looks pretty good there, and I think we're okay with that one. So now we got our regulator and our gauge back on. Of course, our quick connect, we didn't have to take that off right there. This was not affected, so hopefully we're okay with that. That all went together very smoothly. And then our next move is to take our main pressure gauge. This is our tank pressure gauge, or usually called the primary gauge. Just like primary, secondary. So I got to tape this up good, a little more wire brushing on that. A little more Teflon tape on those threads right there. And hopefully the old brute compressor is just about back in service. Alright, so we're going to do a quick review. We got our wiring hooked up here. Our load side, line side over here, all good to go. Got our safety release valve reinstalled on the new pressure switch. I should say installed the new pressure switch. Got our pressure gauge, primary pressure gauge back on, went real super smooth. Regulator and secondary gauge looking real good. Well guys, I finally got the rest of the compressor repair finished up just a little bit ago. Had to kind of break this up into some separate video segments because it was getting just a little bit lengthy. But let me grab the camera again, show you guys what all I finished up on here. Well guys, here you can see I finally got the repair completed. Right here we got our gauges back on the front side of the compressor. Back over here on the side, you can't see it very well. Let me get around the side here. There's our safety release valve installed on the new pressure switch. Back here toward the back is our pressure line. If you can see it very well, it's like right up in here. Again, that's to provide air pressure up to the pressure switch, and that lets the pressure switch know when it's supposed to turn the compressor off. Pretty simple. So that's what it looks like. Not a big major repair. There's the new pressure switch all successfully installed on there. Another repair successfully done. I hope. I honestly won't know for sure till I get it up to maximum operating pressure, which for this compressor is 125 psi. Anyway, thanks guys for checking out this video. Appreciate you guys a lot. Thanks for the likes. If you like videos like this, be sure and smash that like button over there. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I strongly encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube video channel. I'm going to have some more great how to do it videos coming up in the very near future. Right over there is that little subscribe link I'm always talking about. Just click on that, guys. You don't want to miss out. I got more videos all this summer, into next fall, next winter, and who knows for how much longer. So be sure and subscribe. Again, I'm Walt, more also known as Dan Wilson. Thanks for watching. Guys, take care. God bless. And I'll check in with you guys on the next video.